But the Padres do have a new chairman, as Eric Katsenda's tenure is only going to be about a year, which I think was the initial plan when we learned that Peter Seidler had passed away, unfortunately, untimely a year ago. And Eric Katsenda, his longtime business partner, took over for a year. They lowered payroll. They may have done so either way. And now we find out about a year later that Jon Seidler, the brother of Peter Seidler, will take over as chairman. But this really doesn't change the trajectory of where the Padres are going. The Peter Seidler days are not coming back in terms of the freedom to spend, right? Like that version of the Padres has likely come and gone, even though you're going to get the chairman with the same last name as Peter Seidler and Jon Seidler. But this is what Kevin Acee wrote over the weekend. He broke the story. And Kevin said that transition to what they believe is a more sustainable way of operating in a smaller market is expected to continue with Jon Seidler in charge. And then Dennis Lin this weekend said, this offseason has brought more financial restraint. The Padres, before making an addition to the Major League roster, are carrying a projected payroll roughly $40 million higher than it was at the end of the 2024 season. They also are estimated to be over the luxury tax threshold. And like they were last winter with Juan Soto, the Padres have been willing to listen to trade offers for pricier veterans, including Dylan Cease, Luis Arraez, and Jay Cronenworth. So you know that experience, Brent, sometimes with brands where you're like, oh, this is great. Like M&M is bringing back the red M&M. I always go to that for some reason. Or, oh, Sports Illustrated is coming back. But things have changed. Like you can't really go back in time. And yeah, you're going to have the commitment and the continuity of the Seidler family. I think that makes people feel good. Hey, there's a Seidler that's in charge, but it's not going to be the free spending Seidlers because, again, they don't have the TV money. Their budgets have come down. And I don't think all of a sudden, because Jon Seidler's in charge, all of a sudden they're going to go back to their top three spending ways of like 2021 and 2022.
When you said that the spending era is over, the first thing that just popped in my head was kind of like how, whenever people talk about the 80s, how, everyone just spent money in the 80s and, because everyone had money because of the boom, and just the era of 80s spending is done. It's like you said, that's not going to happen again. They're going to be a little more frugal, I guess would be a nice way to put it, with their dollars, to where they're not just going to just write blank checks anymore.
I'll give you an example. This has always stuck with me. Ted Leitner, right? Who you heard this past weekend, he made it to San Jose with the team, and he'll be on the call Saturday in his final year calling Aztec basketball games, right? Did Padres, has done Aztecs, did Chargers, did Clippers, iconic, right? 40 years in the market. Something he has said, it's like he worked in radio when radio was radio. Like you pick up a newspaper at home. It's not necessarily the same paper as it once was, right? Like if you grew up in Milwaukee, the paper doesn't have the same circulation. Like it's not the same. Like the Washington Post isn't the same paper it was in 1985. Media changes. Things evolve. Now, there's good and bad that comes with that, right? That doesn't mean that radio isn't fully what it used to be, but it's not what it was before the internet, right? Like before the internet, newspapers had a certain credibility to them, right? Before social media, you relied on internet news sites, and now there's social media and so on and so forth. Shoot, Facebook isn't Facebook to some people that had Facebook 20 years ago, or MySpace isn't MySpace to people that use MySpace 25 years ago. The point is, you have to adapt. You have to evolve. It's a part of life. It's a part of business. It's a part of sports. I don't know what it means for the Padres. I mean, I'm left to consider this fact. Yes, they're back to Jon Seidler, who's in charge. It was Eric Katsenda. Obviously, Peter Seidler, those days of spending, I think, are over. And again, the actions speak louder than words. You look around baseball, what's going on? You see Sean Manaea signing 3-year, $75 million deal. You see all these moves. You see Walker Buehler signing for over $20 million today. I mean, the Padres haven't made moves, and you have to ask yourself this question: why? They will make moves, and A.J. Preller is very creative and very aggressive. But are they waiting on Roki Sasaki? Are they waiting to finalize a budget? I tend to believe what Kevin Acee has told us on the air, what Dennis Lin has written about, which is they're kind of in a tough spot, a lot like they were a year ago. Now they traded Juan Soto. Everything worked out. They won 93 games. What are they going to do this time around? Are they going to trade Dylan Cease? Are they going to add a cost-effective Roki Sasaki, which would be terrific? Will they part ways with Luis Arraez? Can they find a trade partner for Jay Cronenworth? But like Listen, they can change chairpersons and they can have similar last names and they can say whatever they want to say, but it's Christmas. They're going to make moves. They're going to field all their positions. They're going to have their 26-man roster. They're going to believe they can make the postseason. But again, the actions are, they haven't really had many actions. And I think that speaks to the overall issues they've been dealing with now for a year plus, Brent, which is that they don't have the same amount of money that they had 2 years ago when Peter was here.
Yeah, people just have to get used to it. They'll still survive. Just because you spend money doesn't automatically equate to that you're going to win anything.
Sure.
Look at
You're
Tampa.
right.
Tampa never spends money, and they're still at least competitive. And they don't spend money on their stadium. They don't spend their money on anything really, but they're still competitive. So, and look how many years the Cubs dump money into teams and they didn't do anything with it. And the Yankees do it all the time. It hasn't brought them anywhere championships. So just because you spend money doesn't mean that you automatically are going to win. And just because you don't spend money doesn't mean you're automatically going to lose.
I think it's a really good point. I think you could tie it back to San Diego State men's basketball specifically. Maybe they don't charter like Syracuse. They've won at a higher level than Syracuse over the last 10 years. Maybe they don't have the same NIL money as the University of North Carolina right now, but they've won at a comparable clip to UNC here over the last couple of years. You get the overall point. You have to make more sometimes with less. And sometimes when you don't have that blank check, when you have to really hone in, that allows you to perform at a high level. I use AJ Preller's 2024 as a good example. Maybe in 2022 and 2023, Brian, he had that, throw caution to the wind, blank check. If it doesn't work out, we can try with another check. Well, he knew he had to be close to perfect a year ago, and he was able to navigate a roster considering those circumstances. The question now is, can he do it time and time again with the budget constraints? So we'll talk about that on the other side. No, it's just like, it's one thing to be quiet. Okay, it's only December 23rd. They'll make moves. Everyone knows they're going to have a left fielder and catcher and fourth and fifth starter. Everyone understands that. But just everything's quiet. We hear from no one. I guess we heard from AJ Preller briefly at the winter meetings. We heard from Mike Schild on Roki Sasaki. Maybe we haven't heard from a chairperson because they're transitioning. I mean, Eric Katsenda is in his entire tenure spoke with the media one time. And, that alone isn't like a critique. I mean, they won 93 games. I'd prefer they won 93 games and speak one time than speak 10 times they win 83 games. But it just feels like people want to know the plan. You lost in disappointing fashion in the postseason. It's a credit to you. You got there. It's a credit to the organization that they won 93 games. You didn't score your last 24 innings. You're watching your rivals get better this offseason. And all that Padre fans are talking about is how can we stay under the CBT? Do we need to trade Dylan Cease? Do we need to trade Luis Ariz? All of our eggs are in the Roki Sasaki sweepstakes. Like, you just want to feel as if you're being heard when things are tough. And things are tough when you don't score in 24 consecutive innings, when you lose a series to the Dodgers that you thought you were going to win when you took a 2-1 series lead, when you watch the Dodgers make additions like Blake Snell, a former Cy Young Award winner for you. That's tough to stomach. You just want to feel as if you're being heard and recognized. And hopefully that happens at some point in 2025. Again, is it the end all be all? No. I'd rather them win 93 games than hear from John Seidler every day. But maybe more of both. You want to see him win again in 2025, and you want to hear that your feedback is being received. And I think there is a lot of feedback right now from Padres fans. I think there is a lot of do something meme. It's time. We're past the winter meetings. There's 8 or 10 teams that have gotten better this year, including the Dodgers and the Mets. You're in the National League. You're in the same division as the Dodgers. You watch what the Giants are doing. What do they say? Staying the same is falling behind. Time to pick up the pace, I would say, if you're the Padres organization this offseason.